have come to visit you in peace and with goodwill.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Earth vs. Soup, episode 82. I'm Aaron Pollier.
I'm Darlene.
And I had to actually look at our notes for the number here because we've actually taped a couple out of order. And it was a little bit confusing, but today we have something a little different. And I'm glad that we did it.
We did do the House on Haunted Hill.
Yes.
Which is one of the five.
One of the five of what? We haven't even mentioned what we're doing today.
Well, this is The Tingler.
This is The Tingler from 1959.
But William Castle and Robert White. William Castor is the director.
Yeah.
And Rob White is the writer. They do a kind of like a gimmick thing. And
for this film.
For this film and other films. There are five of them.
Let's do the plot first and then talk about like the background of what was going on for this movie, because I think people might understand this. Well, I guess we should talk about the gimmicks for this movie first.
Because it starts with the gimmick.
Yeah, I guess the movie does start with the director actually talking about this film, why they made it. It's because people are scared, and there's studies that people scream when they're scared to release tension, and that this is kind of the point of the movie. And they're building it up in such a way as to make you, at least if you were a person in the theater seeing this at the time, to build up a tension in seeing this kind of horror movie, right? Well, what they did was they actually put like electrodes or buzzers in the seats of the movie theaters that this was being shown in. And so when there were moments where in the movie you're supposed to be scared, and he says, hey, if you feel scared at all, you need to just, scream. Feel free to scream. That's how you'll feel better. And I guess it was there to just prime the pump. And there are moments in the movie where it's clear that they're trying to get people to scream by using these devices in the chairs. And there's moments in the film where the film itself breaks the fourth wall a few times. Like when Vincent Price starts talking over the black screen, ladies and gentlemen, the Tingler is loose in your theater. Don't be alarmed. If you feel frightened, just scream, etc., etc. So there's a lot of gimmicks in this film, and I guess if you don't know about the gimmicks, you might not appreciate the film in the same way. You might be confused at
But there's five of them, and one of them is the House on Haunted Hill that they did weird gimmicks to.
Well, they had the prop skeleton that would fly out of like a hidden compartment somewhere. Yeah.
And then Macabre is another one.
We haven't watched that yet.
We haven't watched that one.
Maybe we should, because but keep going. Macabre. What's the other ones?
I only have those three that I could find.
Maybe we should watch that, because I have to say, without spoiling the ending of this review, I think we both liked this.
They're good.
And I know that we both liked House on Haunted Hill.
And The Tingler is called a cult classic.
Well, anything's a cult classic from the time. That's just how you want to advertise the movie today. To me, it is a horror film that has sci-fi elements to it. And it fits. I'm fine with doing pure horror films for Earth vs. Soup.
Okay.
I'm okay with that, because the horror films of the time tend to bleed over into sci-fi anyway, with the same directors, actors, and all that. And this film straddles the line much more than House on Haunted Hill did. House on Haunted Hill was very clearly a horror movie. That there really wasn't a sci-fi element in it, except for having this pit of acid in the basement for whatever reason. That's so bizarre that I guess you could throw that into science fiction. But this is much more closely on the line. than
because they have the
Because
a
there's
very enlarged version of the City Alpha.
the City Alpha worm from Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. Yeah, that's why I kept yelling, "Oh my god, it's the City Alpha worm!"
But this actually comes before that.
Yeah. So maybe we should talk about the plot now,
Okay.
because like I said, I enjoyed it, and I actually think there's a lot of similarities in the plot between this and House on Haunted Hill. Does that mean that this or House on Haunted Hill isn't very original? Maybe, but it's still a good movie. And the similarities, I'll kind of point them out as we go through this. So like we said, the movie begins with the director telling and warning people that they might feel tingling and they may get relief by screaming, and then it goes into this black screen with heads just coming out of the darkness screaming. Just like, okay. Again, 1959, that's priming the pump for having audiences be offset, unsettled a little bit, let's say. The movie proper begins as a man is dragged out of his prison cell by two guards, and it's flashing between this guy and Vincent Price. Now, again, it goes without saying that Vincent Price brings his A game to everything he's in, and Vincent Price is amazing in this film again. I mean, he has presence. I won't say he has as much magnetism on screen like he did in House on Haunted Hill, but every scene he's in, you're like, ooh, Vincent Price.
Well,
yes.
It's also that all the other actors kind of like, some of them, besides the mute, were kind of like there.
Ooh, really? Ollie. See, here's the thing. I don't even have to look at my notes, and I remember some of these characters' names. Okay, so that means that they actually kind of made an impact on me. Ollie's the husband that owns the movie theater with his wife.
Movie theater.
Yeah, but we'll get to that. We'll get to that. There are actual characters in this movie.
But Dave and Lucy really don't seem to be characters. They just seem to be...
They're fill-ins. They're fill-ins to move the plot forward. I didn't say that they were characters. I said there are characters in this film, and I will point them out when we get to that point.
And then his wife, Lucy Stevens, is nothing more than
Lucy Stevens, the sister of Vincent Price's wife, the younger sister. Are you talking about that?
Oh, I'm sorry, Isabel.
BS. I disagree.
Okay.
We'll have a disagreement. We'll have a disagreement, but we'll also have a discussion because of it. Let's get through the plot first here, though. So we were switching between this view of this guy being dragged from his cell and Vincent Price in an autopsy room. The man who was taken from his cell is clearly dead. They drag him out. He's clearly been executed. And he was actually electrocuted. He was put to the electric chair. And it turns out that as he's dragged into the autopsy room, a man named Ollie Higgins, he is there. And he is the dead man's... The dead man, his sister's husband.
Okay.
Yes, because I'm looking there because Martha is his wife. Ollie and Martha. Martha is the sister of the dead man, the man that was executed.
And she's deaf and mute.
She's deaf and mute, but we'll get to that. Yep. So Vincent Price does like this autopsy, and he's like, I think it's a waste of time, but the law says that we have to do an autopsy on anyone who dies in the jail. And it doesn't matter if he was executed or not, and we know what caused his death. The autopsy still needs to be done, and I find it interesting because I have been doing research on fear for like a decade or 2 decades or something like that. And he says he has experiments with fear, and that he's found that the electricity can explain the burns and things like that are on this man, but it doesn't explain how somebody's muscles might contract enough to snap their spine like this man's did. And he's seen it multiple times. And now, mind you, I'm pretty sure that we have the muscles to actually break our spine in an electrical, if we're electrocuted like that. But the conceit of this movie is that Vincent Price has a theory that there is something there that he then later refers to as the tingler, that is the thing that actually causes people to die in fear. Okay. So Ollie asks to be driven back into town. Ollie's not really that disturbed by the autopsy, which is weird. He seems to be more in shock than anything. I'll give it to the actor. The actor actually does a pretty good job through this movie playing what he does. We'll get to it again. Ollie asks to be driven back into town, so Price drives him back, and it turns out that Ollie and his wife, who is the deaf mute, Martha, they run a silent movie theater. And it's showing what movie, Darlene? It's showing like
you said it.
Yeah, I don't.
There's on a poster. There's Bela Lugosi.
Yeah, but that's in the background, man. I forget the name of the movie that they're showing. It actually is a real movie.
I do have.
It's like Dal David or something like that.
Yeah, I do have that written down in the back here. Tolerable David
from 1921. Okay. And they actually do show clips of this movie throughout, at the end of the movie.
And you really have a lot of them.
Okay, so Vincent is offered to come, he's asked to come up for coffee. The wife comes up and puts money in a safe. And this is where we see her unable to speak. She is obsessive compulsive. That's what comes across. She washes compulsively, goes through $5 worth of towels a week
to be washed.
And I'm thinking, from 1959, $5 of towels a week. Holy crap! That's an insane amount of money that they're having to go through.
Very much protective of that safe.
Yes, and it's like where they keep all the proceeds from the theater. And later on, we see her, after she's passed out and rewoken, she'll actually immediately dash to the safe and count the money to make sure it's all still there. So I don't know. I think she's either paranoid or obsessive compulsive. The obsessive compulsive seems to be a better conclusion to come to because of the washing and everything. Vincent ends up cutting his hand and Martha passes out.
Because
she just
any type of blood, she's just petrified.
Yeah, she's absolutely petrified, and she locks up. And they have a conversation about how that her fainting is a release from her fear, and that since she can't scream, she has none of this release. So it ends up just overwhelming her and causing these problems. Vincent ends up waking her up with smelling salts, and this is where she immediately dashes to the safe to make sure the money's safe. Vincent goes home and is greeted by a woman named Lucy. Now, there's these weird relationships in this movie. Lucy is the sister of Vincent Price's wife in this movie. Okay, so Vincent Price plays a guy named Dr.
Warren
Chaplin. Chapin. And that his wife is Isabel. So Isabel's sister Lucy is there, and she's dating David Morris,
which is his assistant.
Okay.
That the estate is paying for both of their research.
Yes. So it's Vincent Price's wife that has the money. And Vincent, there's a whole discussion about how his wife is an awful human being. And Vincent Price's character in this isn't Lily White by any means. But she seems to be an awful person. She's in this conversation, it turns out that Isabel is cheating on him, sleeping with multiple other men. And
she comes home in the movie and kisses a person right outside the front door, right out of the car.
Yeah, it's very clear she's cheating on Vincent Price, and she's refusing to give her family's inheritance, the share of the inheritance, to her younger sister. She's refusing to do it. And Lucy, the younger sister, isn't really that upset about it. She's just like, you know what? If my sister's going to be a bitch, she's going to be a bitch. You don't need to involve yourself. Things will work out for themselves in the end. Okay, so we get to a scene right after this scene where there's this whole kind of exposition about Vincent Price's wife. We have David coming in and going, okay, I got you the prescription that you wanted, Vincent. You need to be careful with this stuff. It's pretty dangerous.
Read about it is what he was saying.
Yeah, you need to read all the stuff about this. And I go, oh my God, Darlene, I think I know what this is. And this is kind of crazy that they're actually putting this into a film. He ends up putting this away for the moment. We'll talk about what it is a little bit later. But this is where his wife comes home and she's kissing this other guy outside. Vincent pulls a gun on her and tells her to get into his lab and give Lucy, like, he's demanding to give Lucy half the money like she deserves. Otherwise I'll make sure you commit suicide. And she's like, you wouldn't. Oh, but my darling, I'm a medical coroner. I know how to fake things and make it look like you're dead. And this is the parallel between like House on Haunted Hill and this, is that like this antagonistic relationship between Vincent Price's character and his wife. It's a different type of antagonism in these two movies, but it's still there. And they found a good actress. Her name was Patricia Cutts. They found a good actress that actually had a bit of a screen presence. Now you say no, that...
Well, I feel like she was nothing more than a stereotype.
The harlot wife, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yes, but she did it very well, and she actually had chemistry with Vincent Price.
The character was nothing more than a character.
Sure. And he ends up shooting her, but it's actually not a real shot. It's a blank from his gun, but she doesn't know that. And the fear makes her pass out.
And I think she's wearing a gold dress.
You can't
Even though
tell.
it's black and white.
Yeah.
It's definitely metallic.
Okay, so he grabbed... Yes, I agree. Or at the very least...
It just doesn't... It doesn't move right unless it's...
You know, it could have been satin or something like that, like a stiff satin.
It just did not... I would have said that it looked like... Just because of it how it appears, it has to be a metallic.
Well, she passes out, right? He grabs her unconscious body and throws her onto the x-ray table.
And this is an old x-ray.
Yeah, and I go, oh my God, darling, look at that fluoroscope. Oh my God.
So if you want to see an old one, there it is.
The old Radiation King thing.
Yeah, oh my God. And he doesn't even shut the door.
He does dive behind a shield, though.
Yes, but the door is slightly open.
Yeah, but there's nobody else in the house. I mean, I doubt that, like, the roof of his lab is shielded or anything, so if there's a bedroom up above and he's sitting there pounding away with x-rays, I'm sure somebody's getting juiced upstairs. Anyway, he takes a whole bunch of x-ray pictures of her neck.
No, her back, neck, and...
Yeah. And the next day he shows the x-rays to David, and he's like, look at this. And this is where we see the first images of the Ceti Alpha worm. But the Ceti Alpha worm in this, the Tingler, is maybe like 1.5 feet long. And it
starts off at the bottom of the spine.
Yeah, he says it's
and you
microscopic.
can barely see it.
Yeah, he says it's microscopic in almost all cases. The problem is that his theory says it feeds on fear. And that's the tingling that you get up and down your back, is when the Tingler is feeding on fear, and it grows. And it will, like, reduce in size again when you're not feeling fear. That's okay. This is the sci-fi element here, folks, or whatever. But anyway, the X-rays showed that this Ceti alpha worm, which is like 1.5 feet long right now, when he took the X-rays at least, were along his wife's like neck down
And it
past
looks
her
like
shoulders.
a centipede.
It's a Ceti. It looks like the Ceti alpha worm.
Yeah, it.
From Star Trek II: The Wrath
Well,
of
I don't
Khan.
know if anyone knows what that looks like.
Okay, look
And
up
it
Khan
looks-
putting Ceti alpha worms in people's heads.
And it's got 2 big tentacles,
Mhm.
grippers.
Yeah, like
mallets,
they're like gripping feet that come off of its head.
mouth
Yeah, mouth parts.
outside, and it's got a lot of legs that are.
Almost like hands. They almost have hands on them, like little tiny fingers, right? Like gripping
And there's
hands.
a lot of these because it goes down the spine.
Yeah, so like each pair of arms grips like one vertebra, basically. He says it exists in all human beings, and screaming might kill it. That's why people scream when they're terrified. It's a self-preservation technique. Then Vincent decides that he needs to face fear himself in a controlled environment to see if he can not scream and let this thing grow
But he did it without people there.
without, well,
So that's not.
his assistant and, well, it's David and Lucy are there, but they can't
He
get in the lab.
thought he sent them away.
Okay. But they were there. Yes, he did send them away. But here's the thing. He locks himself in his lab and he shoots up LSD. And it is LSD in this movie. I mean, obviously Vincent Price did not take LSD in this movie, but they actually have him reading text about LSD. And he starts tripping balls and seeing weird things, and he's terrified. And he ends up screaming and
I
passing
don't
out.
think the reaction that he did was what he wanted to do of seeing fear. But I don't think all LSD victims do
Have-
that.
Well, users, no, you don't. It's there's dreamlike things, there's hallucinations, right? But not everything is about being afraid. I mean, I've talked to people that have dropped LSD. I have not myself. I know you haven't, but I know people that have, and some of them have said yes, there are things that are frightening. Sometimes it's more about patterns and colors and feeling a little out of body, things like that. So I mean, the thing is, Vincent Price also says that he shoots up 50% more than what was recommended for like having a dreamlike.
He was supposed to.
Like he says 10 milligrams or something
he did
like that.
50.
Was it 50? I thought 15.
Maybe I was wrong.
Anyway, I don't know what the proper dosage of LSD is. All I know is that it was more than what the book he was reading said to do. Okay, so he passes out. But before
It
he
was
does,
50 milligrams, and he upped it to 100.
oh, okay, so 50%. Yeah, he doubled it. Okay, I'm sorry. After he wakes up, after his pass out thing, Vincent decides that he needs to experiment on the deaf mute wife of Ollie because she can't scream, and he did. So he's going to give her an injection and then claims he's going to give Ollie a script for sleeping pills. And he goes back to the theater. She's been having a hard time sleeping. That's where this whole plan comes from. She's been having a hard time sleeping because of seeing this tiny little cut on Vincent Price's hand. And it's really affected her in a weird way. Anyway, he goes in, he gives her the quote unquote sedative, which was like a huge thing of LSD. He gives Ollie the script for sleeping pills. They all leave. Okay, now her apartment's like above the.
Even though they have to walk across the street.
No, they walk around. It's around the side, the entryway. Anyway, for their apartment. Their apartment's like above the movie theater. she starts hallucinating. She sees like hands with axes, like throwing axes at her. There's
This is
like
where you have the red blood color
yes.
comes
So
in.
this whole movie's in black and white, and then at one point she walks into the bathroom, and there's bright red blood that they like. I guess they
pouring out of the sink.
now what they did, how they filmed this was they hand spliced colored film into this black and white movie, and they filmed on a set that was painted to look black and white, and then just filmed regular red blood on it, and then spliced that piece of film into
And the
rest of
bathtub
movie.
full of.
The bathtub full of bright red blood, and it's actually kind of effective.
I will
very
give
effective.
this was not what I what happened. I did not expect what
Oh,
happened
with that?
to be what it was.
Really?
I really got to say that what's his name that does the Scar, the person you hate, and you always say what the Shyamalan
M. Night Shyamalan
needs
Signs
to watch this film to show you what you can do
with like a twist, a
to
movie
do
twist,
a twist.
where like I don't walk into his film and go, well, okay. There was only one time Shyamalan actually kind of surprised me, but that was with his the first big movie with
The
like, oh wow,
Village.
no, The Village wasn't it. It was the kid that Bruce Willis was dead. Like I actually didn't
8.
expect that. No, it's not 8.
Um,
I liked Unbreakable, even though I kind of got what was going on in it. But I mean, like Village and Signs.
in Village.
It was the first 5 minutes. I'm like, it's modern day. These people are Luddites.
He says this loudly in the doggone movie theater,
And it was all from one clue. It was all just one clue.
and I'm like embarrassed.
It was one clue. We're getting away from the movie, but I'll say what that one clue is. It's when they're panning through the village at the beginning of the village. You see a gravestone that's clearly been weathered for centuries that has somebody's death date in like the 1850s. So you're like, it's not the 1700s. It's not the 1800s. It's clearly modern day. Anyway, all right. So
Shyamalan needs to watch this movie so
Okay,
he
so
can
that's what
find
we're
out
gonna-
what twist really can
so
be.
she basically dies. The wife dies of fright. Ollie brings her to Vincent's house, and Vincent examines her in his lab and says, okay, no, wait, she's dead. She is stone dead, Ollie.
And then she raises up.
Yeah, like she rises up, like she sits up on the the medical bed, and then lays back down. And Vincent says, okay, hold on. That's I mean, I've seen that kind of thing before, because sometimes bodies do sit up. But I'm going to do this autopsy now. He cuts her open and removes the Seti alpha worm, because the Seti alpha worm is huge. It's like the size of his arm. It's huge, right?
And he puts it in a box.
Yes. Well, it bites his arm first, and it almost like breaks his arm, which is pretty crazy. The wife then ends up like they end up having this conversation. Ollie goes back home. Vincent's wife and him have this discussion where she ends up drugging him during it. And I don't know. We see the husband.
She takes a small vial out of the laboratory.
Yeah, and I thought it was the LSD. I thought, oh my God, she's going to like overdose him on LSD and he's going to die screaming or something like that. But it's actually like a sedative, because she drugs him. And then we go to Ollie at the movie theater apartment, and we're like, oh, he's kind of going around and he's looking at his wife's things. And then we see him actually pick up like
the hand
that had like this
axe,
and it's like, oh my God,
and
wait
he
a
puts
second.
it into. And I told you, every last one of those, when they were doing it, I'm like, she must be remembering, because I was thinking that she was on LSD, and all those things are segments from
Like movies or
silent
something.
movie horror.
But it wasn't. It was Ollie.
Who used the silent movie?
But here's the thing, like this is the twist of it. He didn't know she was on LSD.
No.
He did it because he wanted to try to scare her to death regardless.
Yes, because he wanted to be free of her.
Because she was like this incredible burden. He was she was like, according to him, ruining both of their lives with her like obsessive compulsive behavior and all that. And he thought that he couldn't leave her because
because he was the last person to take care of her.
Yes,
because his brother died.
Yes, the brother died and all that, but he's trying to justify his awful behavior, and I'm saying he tries to justify it. I'm not saying he did justify it.
So both of them, the doctor and Ollie, are both responsible for her death.
Yes. So what we actually have, we have Vincent's wife trying to kill David's wife and Vincent.
David's wife.
Yeah, the Lucy.
Oh, that's
with the Ceti Alpha worm. Like she tries to release the Ceti Alpha worm.
His name is Warren.
Yeah, and
David is the fiance of.
Yes, so it's not Lucy.
It's Isabel that is his wife.
Yeah, Lucy screams when she sees the Ceti Alpha worm. It stuns it. Vincent throws it into a box and says, "Oh my God, this thing is insanely powerful." Because these things, theoretically, since these things live in all of us, they have to like deflate when they're not feeding on fear. And the thing is that this one can't get rid of it, because obviously people aren't like going around with these giant Ceti Alpha worms on their backs because they were afraid one time in their life. It shrinks back down after a little bit. It's only when you die of fright that it's huge. But then even after you're dead, it shrinks back down.
Except that
they took it out of the body of Ollie's wife, Martha. So he's like, "Oh my God, we got to get it back into her corpse." And we have to, so it will like dissipate. It will dissolve back into nothingness and we'll all be done with it. Get Ollie on the phone. And Ollie's not, at this point,
Ollie's
they don't know.
Answering because he's picking up everything and
he's getting the money.
Getting ready to run.
Yes. And they don't know he did it yet. He did what he did. Now, finally, Vincent gets there. He confronts Ollie and sees all the scary things that he was trying to get rid of. And he's not really being that judgmental, because I think at this point, even Vincent's character is like, you know what? I think everyone has enough blame going around here, because I shot her up with LSD and you tried to scare her to death. No one's blameless here. Let's just
call the police.
Let's just call the police.
Put the
worm back.
Put the worm back, and then have the funeral home take care of her.
Yes, but I mean, it is implied that Vincent is going to try to get Ollie to be arrested for murder.
Yes, even though he's just
he's just as guilty of it. Well, he's guilty of at least assisting in it. Let's put it that way. Maybe unintentionally, but he did. The Tingler then escapes from the box before they're able to put it back.
And it's a metal box.
Yeah, it bends out this box. And it drops into the theater below the apartment. And this is where we get the whole, like, the screen goes to black and you hear Vincent's saying, like, the Tingler is loose in the theater. If you feel it, scream, it will stun it. If you feel afraid, make sure you scream, because it will prevent the Tingler from killing you, etc., etc. It gets into the projection booth and, like, it's silhouetted against the screen. That's really cool. He captures the Tingler. He puts it back.
Well, that's where it's with the projection person trying to choke him, and he was able to scream. So it drops down, and he puts it in a
movie film canister. And then they get it back to the apartment, and they put it back in Ollie's wife's body. Ollie's about to leave when the door slams, and the wife's body rises up and stares at Ollie, and Ollie can't scream. Like, he's so terrified he can't scream. The end. So I guess it's implied at the end of the Tingler, since it didn't die along with Martha, that now it controls her body like a zombie in a strange way.
I don't know what they're
It's either that or Vincent shot him full of freaking LSD on his way out the door, and we just never saw it. But to me, either one's possible. So that's the plot. It's actually kind of interesting what's going on. There's only like one really blameless character here, and that's like Lucy. Because I mean, even
David is blameless.
Well,
too,
David got LSD for everybody.
Yeah, but he was just doing. And there's the cat. You forgot all about.
The cat and the dog that he. Well, see there, he's not. He is blamed. He has something to blame. He captures stray cats and dogs to experiment with, for Vincent.
Yes.
So, you know what? No, I'm not.
He's not even a character.
He's not really a character. There's only one like blameless character here, and it's Lucy. And because she's constantly just like, if my sister wants to be a bitch, fine, whatever. I don't care.
She doesn't say that.
No, she doesn't. She doesn't. But
she's just happy to go out. She ignores what her sister's.
Yeah, she ignores her sister. She just kind of says, you know what? If she wants to be a harlot or whatever, let her be that way, because it's not affecting us. And she clearly has a decent relationship with Vincent Price's character, Dr. Chapin.
Yes.
So, okay, big deal. That's the plot. So let's talk about what works in this movie. Darlene, go ahead.
Like I said, that was a twist.
There was an actual twist in this that I did not see coming. Yeah. Good job, movie. Good job, Tingler. I'll do the second one. The blood, the colored blood in this,
yes,
was one of the most effective special effects I've seen in a movie.
We've seen this. What was that? The House on Haunted Hill, or was that something else? With the
red, it might have been. Oh my god, I can't remember, because we saw that too. That there was like red blood. It could have been. It could have been. Regardless, it was very effective. It made the movie feel a little more surreal. Especially that scene, but then again, she was tripping balls on LSD, right? Like, there should be weird things that she's seeing. Now, mind you, when you look at that scene, when you watch that scene back knowing the twist, the blood stuff is the only thing that actually... Well, there might be two things in there. That it's the blood and then the death certificate.
The death certificate was pretty scary, too, because it was dated for that day.
Yeah.
And had her
like died of fright or something like that.
Died of fright, and she always was afraid to die of fright.
Yeah, so that was really effective. Go. What worked? What else worked, Darlene? Your turn.
I actually like the little Muppet that they used for
the SETI Alpha. The Tingler. Yeah.
Yes.
I thought it looked great. For a cheapo movie critter that just kind of like wiggles on the floor when you're dragging it across with like a fishing line or something like that. It's super cheap, very effective, scary looking. And I mean, it looks like a real creature. I was waiting
for the cat to pounce it, though.
Oh, well, it would have killed the cat. It would just, because it hurts people. Like, it grips onto.
Well, that's why I'm just saying that.
Like the cat would have gotten it, yeah. Because it was like jiggling across the floor. Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree. What else works here is again, like I said, Vincent Price brings his A game to everything he does, and he's a joy to watch. That being said, most of the other actors, I think, do an actual good job with the parts they're given. They just really don't have that great of characters. I really liked the wife, Martha. The deaf-mute wife. I think she did a very good job.
She actually did a lot of eye work.
Yes.
So I would say that of all the characters besides, all the actors besides Vincent Price, she was damn good.
Well, she actually has second billing, if you don't know, in this movie. She has second billing. And here's the thing. I honestly thought while watching this, because remember, I said when I went into watching this, I'm going into this completely knowing nothing about this movie. I watched this and I thought, you know what? She was a silent movie actress. This is the whole tie-in with the silent movies that they're showing, that she's deaf mute, that she actually is a silent movie actress, because she was acting so well with her eyes.
Well, she was also older.
Yes, and it turns out she's
She-
not.
She's not.
No, her earliest film here in her repertoire is 1946.
Hmm.
And it's Angel Street, a TV movie. Her first actual movie is the 13th Letter in 1951. So I mean, this was made in 1959. So you can argue
She
that,
has gorgeous Betty Davis eyes.
yeah, I mean, fantastic. Yes, she was born in 1909, so she was 50
You know
years old.
who looks like her?
Who?
The person that plays Dr. Crusher.
Oh, a little bit.
The eyes are about like Dr. Crusher.
Okay. To me, she reminds me a little bit of Morticia Adams with like her promo shots. Just the eyes and the way she has her lips done in her promo shots. Anyway, regardless, I think she did a fantastic job with what she had, which was very little.
Unlike the person that I didn't think did good was Isabella.
Oh, Patricia Cutts as Vincent's wife.
Yeah.
See, I think she was fine. I thought they actually had good interplay. But again, there wasn't a character with her. I just thought she did a good job with what she was given. I think all the actors and actresses in
She's
this
the one
did.
I didn't think had a character. It was just a character.
All right, well, let's move on to what didn't work in this movie. What didn't work?
A lot of the characters were caricatures.
Yeah, there really weren't any solid characters outside of...
Ollie,
Yeah,
Dr. Chaplin, and Miss Higgins.
Yes. Ollie and Martha, the husband-wife that, own the movie theater. Outside of them, and Vincent Price, who brings his A game, yeah, they're kind of forgettable in a lot of ways. I think they did fine, but they are forgettable. I think the gimmick, while it might have worked in 1959 inside of movie theaters, it doesn't really work upon viewing it here. In context, when we're thinking of it in context, we're like, okay, I get what this movie tried to do. But as a gimmick movie, it loses a lot of that oomph that it might have
Once
had.
it's on.
Yeah. Now, I'm not saying that the movie is not good, because
I think
again,
it is
spoiler, it is good. We both recommend it. It's just that it loses a bit of that oomph that might have been there in a theater that had these like shockers or buzzers in the seats to scare you. Like, I totally see where this movie could have been actually a bit frightening in 1959, like honestly frightening. We already said that this is for a modern filmmaker. This is how to do a twist. I know we spoiled it for you.
But it's there.
It's there,
And you
and it's
can
really
watch it.
well done. It's really well done. I mean, spoiler alert, yes, this was made umpteen amount of years ago, but don't worry about it.
But you weren't expecting the murderer to actually have been Ollie.
Who was so mild-mannered all the way through this.
You were just going, what? This is bad of what Dr. Chaplin
But
did.
it makes sense when you look back at it. Like when you watch when you remember what happened with Ollie all the way through the movie, you're like, oh, I get it. Yeah, no, this didn't come out of nowhere. It just, because it's 1959, you don't expect that from that kind of character.
No, because he's very quiet, very
Yeah,
unassuming.
yeah. And obviously we recommend this, folks.
And he actually, at the beginning, when he's sign languaging to
Martha's wife.
Martha, he looks like he's in love with her.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I do think he does honestly love her. It's that her life is miserable. He is miserable. They love each other, but they're clearly...
He just wants to set her free.
Yeah. I think they're both not happy with life, but they love each other. I don't know. It's weird. it's clearly a toxic relationship of some form, but I think there is love there. Yeah, like you said, there's that scene, and you actually feel that this guy loves his wife. And
he'd do almost anything for her.
Yeah. So I don't know. We recommend it, right? I mean, wholeheartedly, yes. So we'll leave it at that, and hopefully you guys enjoy this film if you watch it. So we'll talk to you next time. All right.
Good night.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Thanks for listening to this episode of This Week in Geek. Hungry for more? Check out our website at thisweekingeek.net. You can subscribe to the podcast, browse our Twitter and Instagram, and leave your thoughts on today's topics. If you'd like to give us some feedback, send us an email at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. Tune in next time, and remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.